Hello there, welcome or welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hi, my name is Samantha and this is my channel where I talk all about books. Anyway, today I'm filming my first sit-down video in like a month. University has been killing me. That's all I gotta say about that. It has been chaotic as it was before, and yeah, basically this whole year has been chaotic at university, and so I have really just not had the time or energy to sit down and film videos. I have been doing weekly vlogs and then I edit it and then I'm like, this is so boring. My life is monotonous and I am not enjoying it. So yeah, I've been scrapping all of my vlogs because they're not interesting. I haven't been in the best of moods, and also I feel like a lot of the books that I've been reading recently have not been like favorites or anything. Well, they definitely haven't been. I've really just been like struggling with reading for like the last like, I don't know, 7 or 8 months really. Like I just have not found a new favorite book in a really long time, and I feel like a lot of the books I've been reading have been like 3 stars or like between 3 and 4 stars, which obviously 4 stars is a good rating, but it's like not a new favorite. And like the only 5 stars I've given this year have been to rereads, or apart from one other book, but like it's not a new favorite, but it was a 5 stars. So maybe I should lower it because 5 stars is like favorite level. Maybe I'll lower that, but it's fine. Whatever. I haven't been super enthusiastic about reading. Life is weird. You all know that. We've been in a pandemic for over a year now and things are difficult. So yeah, sorry for not posting frequently. Sorry that some of the content I have posted recently hasn't been great. I'm working on it. This is very rambly. Today I'm coming to you with my April wrap up, which again, it's late. I'm sorry. We're just gonna have to deal with it. But yeah, in the month of April, I read 4 books and I took part in 1 readathon, although I really failed at that readathon. But yes, I also failed with my April TBR because I actually posted a TBR video, which I'll link up in the card in case you're interested, even though like April's been and gone, but in case you're interested for whatever reason, it will be there. But yeah, I put 11 books on my April TBR and I read 4 of them. I kind of knew that 11 books is ambitious, but I'm still a little bit disappointed in myself that I only read 4 books. But I was like really in a reading slump at the beginning of the month. It wasn't great. But yeah, the readathon I took part in was the Linguathon, and I had 3 books on my TBR for that, and I only managed to finish 1 of them, and I'm still currently reading another one of them, which I will be finishing in May, I hope. I better finish in May. Anyway, let's talk about the books because I'm rambling at this point. So the first book that I read in the month was one of the ones I read for the Linguathon, and that was Before the Coffee Gets Cold by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. And I forgot what challenge this was for. I think it was to read a book that was translated from an Asian language, I want to say was the challenge. But anyway, if you don't know what Before the Coffee Gets Cold is about, this is basically a time travel novel wherein basically there's this cafe in Tokyo. I think it's Tokyo. In that cafe, you can travel back in time, but one of the rules is that you have to return to the present before your coffee gets cold. Otherwise, you get stuck wherever you are. And there are other rules around it as well. I heard about this book a while ago. Like I don't know who I heard it from, but I heard about it and thought it sounded so interesting. And I actually enjoyed this book quite a bit. I ended up giving it 3.5 out of 5 stars. I will say something I think you should know going into this book is that it's kind of like 4 short stories, but then there is like a connection throughout. Like there are characters who are always present and they're the characters who work in the cafe, so you get kind of their story, but then you also have people who come into the cafe and time travel and you get kind of their stories. I thought that was really interesting, and all of them are like hard-hitting. They all have something going on which makes them want to travel back in time to kind of talk to a loved one who they can't talk to anymore. So there's definitely a trigger warning for death of a loved one. As always, I'll put the Goodreads page and the content warnings down below. Anyway, but yeah, so it's kind of like 4 short stories, so they are a little bit repetitive because you have this person come to the cafe, the rules are explained to them, then they travel back in time and everything, and so it is a little bit repetitive because you do get the rules told to you so many times. And so I feel like this is a book that's best read over like a week, or like just read like 1 part a day, because this book is split into 4 parts. So yeah, I think if you read 1 part a day, then you won't get like bored with the repetition. But for me, I think I read like 2 stories one day and then 2 the next, and so it was very close together and I did get a little bit tired of the repetition. But overall, I enjoyed this. I enjoyed the concept, and it was really interesting reading a translated book because I feel like I don't read a lot of translated work, and I do translation in my degree. So yeah, it's really interesting for me because this past year at university we've had a big focus on translation, and so it's interesting seeing like word choice and how sometimes things sound a little little bit awkward in English, in my opinion. Sorry, I look disgusting because I'm currently editing this video and it's like early in the morning. I just wanted to pop on and say that it sounds like I am criticizing the translation a lot, and that's not my intention. Trust me, I hate literary translation. I always opt for journalistic translation because that's my jam. I'm not a fan of literary translation, but I was just meant that like sometimes, like what I've experienced in my classes when translating things is that sometimes there's something that sounds really good in the original language and it's difficult to make it sound good in the English but have the same meaning. Or yeah, so it's just like, I don't know, there were just a few things that sounded a little bit weird, so it would be really interesting to see what it was in the original language. But obviously I don't speak Japanese, so I'll never know. But yeah, it's just interesting for me as someone who does translation. But yeah, not a critique. Translation is freaking hard, especially the literary translation is freaking hard. Props to the translator. It's just a thought. Anyway, okay, I'm gonna let you go because this is not a good look. And yeah, it's just interesting having done translation, reading something that is translated. I feel like I'm not explaining that very well, but it's something that I feel like you need to experience to be able to like be like, ah, interesting. But yeah, I gave that one 3.5 out of 5 stars. I'm actually reading the sequel, which is Tales from the Cafe at the moment. Good book, would recommend. The next book I read was When No One Is Watching by Alyssa Cole. I listened to the audiobook of this, and this book is basically a thriller about gentrification in Brooklyn, I want to say, in New York. And it basically follows our main character, Sydney. She's noticing that a lot of her neighbors are kind of disappearing, and she has a new neighbor called Theo who lives across the street. And basically Sydney and Theo are kind of trying to figure out what's going on in her neighborhood, why these people are disappearing. It's been compared to Get Out, that movie, which I haven't seen because it's like labeled as a horror film and I don't do horror. But I ended up giving this book a 3 out of 5 stars. I think that this book was really well done, and I think it's such an interesting premise, and it's scary because like it could happen and gentrification does happen, but I feel like the specific like plot twists could happen, which makes it like really creepy and eerie. But I think that like I kind of saw where the story was going from the very beginning. I feel like it's pretty easy to kind of call the twist. I also found it weird that Sydney and Theo have a relationship, and I feel like it just wasn't necessary. Like all of this thrilling stuff was happening and then I was like, wait, we need a chapter for them to bang, and I was like, do we though? I don't know. I just found myself getting not bored. I wasn't bored reading this book, but I was just like, I saw the ending from like the very beginning, so I just found it a little bit predictable. I wasn't interested in the relationship, so that kind of took away from my enjoyment of the story. Also, I listened to this on audio and I'm just like not feeling audiobooks right now, so I think that was also like part of the problem, but that's like my own problem. So I ended up giving this book a 3 out of 5 stars. I enjoyed it for sure, but I do think that the relationship was unnecessary and it was a little bit predictable. But yeah, I would still recommend it for sure. The next book that I read was one that I have been putting off for over a year. I just didn't think I was ever gonna read it, and then I was supposed to be in a live show for it, but I didn't finish it in time, which is a shame. But yeah, I was putting this book off for a year because it's so long, and I honestly thought I had outgrown this author, but I enjoyed this book. That book was House of Earth and Blood by Sarah J. Maas, also known as Crescent City. This is actually the first book in the Crescent City trilogy. I think it's a trilogy. I'm sure you know what this book's about because everyone and their mother has read this book and raved about it. But if you don't know what this book's about, this is basically, I forgot the entire plot. This is an urban fantasy book set in this city where basically all kind of supernatural creatures exist. You got werewolves, vampires, fae, angels, mermaids. There are mermaids in it, or merpeople I should say. All of these supernatural creatures exist. It follows our main character Bryce, and at the very, not the very beginning of the novel, but I guess kind of the beginning because I think it's like 80 pages in, basically a bunch of people who Bryce knows are murdered, and Bryce ends up teaming up with Hunt. Is his name Hunt or is his name Hawk? His name's Hunt. I'm sorry, I'm getting confused with freaking, what's it called? From Blood and Ash. So Bryce and Hunt team up to kind of like solve the murder mystery, and it deals a lot with grief. This book is very violent. Not so much violent, but it's very gruesome. It's an 800-page book. It's massive. I ended up actually really enjoying this book. I gave it a 4.25 out of 5 stars, which is very specific, but it wasn't quite a 4.5. It was more than a 4. But basically, I found the first part of this book to be kind of boring, and I like wasn't very interested in it. I found it difficult to like care about the characters and what was happening. Now I look even grosser than I did when I inserted a clip yesterday. But basically, I did the worst job reviewing this book. So this book was really long. It was 800 pages, which was kind of unnecessary. And I found that like in the beginning, I didn't care that much about the characters. So like the things that happened in the beginning didn't really impact me emotionally. And then it wasn't until later on in the book that like I actually felt like upset about what happened. So I feel like the beginning stuff maybe could have happened later on, or this radical idea. She could have fleshed out that whole beginning part and made it its own book and then split this book into 2. And so had everything that happened in the beginning happen in its own separate book so that you actually cared about the characters, and then had the second, like the rest of the book, because that was probably like the first 100 or 200 pages, so have the other 600 pages as its own book. And then yeah, there was like 500 pages in the middle, which was just like, I enjoyed it because I don't mind like a slow plot, like getting to know characters, that's fine by me, but it was very slow. And then the ending, so much happened in like such a short space. Well, it was like 150 pages probably, but like in comparison to the rest of the book, it was a really short amount of time. So I don't know, it just seemed kind of rushed and chaotic, especially considering the rest of it was so slow. So I don't know, I feel like maybe she could have taken things out, or as I said, like split it into 2 books, and it would have worked way better, I think. I still really enjoyed my time reading this, which is why I gave it 4.25 out of 5 stars. Like it was I had fun reading it, but I do think that it would have benefited being split into 2 books. Like I don't think it wasn't perfect by any means. Yeah, I think it was too long, and I definitely do have criticisms of it, but it was still an enjoyable time. But I definitely wouldn't like recommend this to everyone because yeah, I think there are better books for sure. Anyway, that's my better review. Yeah, so I enjoyed this book. It actually made me cry. I shed a tear, maybe even 2 tears. Like I wasn't sobbing or anything, but I was just reading and some tears leaked out of my eyes, and I was like, what is happening? Anyway, that was a surprise because I never cry in books. What am I even saying? What am I trying to get at? My mind is so scattered today. I will definitely continue on with the series, and annoyingly I'll have to reread this first book. It's only annoying because it's 800 freaking pages. But yeah, I enjoyed it. Wasn't a new favorite, but I will continue on with the series. And who knows, maybe when I reread it, it will be a favorite. I've been rambling for such a long time. I need to finish this up, for God's sake. The last book that I finished in the month of April, I actually didn't finish in the month of April. I finished it on like the 2nd of May, but I'm counting it for April. But that was The Toll by Neal Shusterman. This is the 3rd and final book in the Archivist Scythe trilogy. The last book for the Scythe Along, which if you don't know, is a read-along that I've been hosting with Noelle from Noelle's Fun Pages and Mel from The Bookish Mel. As always, they'll be linked down below because apparently I cannot get through a single video without mentioning at least one of them. Anyway, but yeah, they'll be linked down below. We will be having our live show on May 15th, which hopefully I get this video up before then. If you don't know what Scythe is about, in the first book Scythe, we follow our 2 main characters, Rowan and Citra, and it's basically set in this utopian society where natural death no longer happens, car accidents don't happen, or other accidents don't happen, all illnesses have been cured. And so in order to control population, there are these people called Scythes who basically have the clearance to kill people, and once they die, they're dead. Whereas if you die from some other reason, you're actually revived. It's not until you're killed by a scythe that you are permanently dead. Anyway, and so it should be this utopian society, but of course there is corruption in the scythedom. This book is wild. When I read this book last year for the first time, I loved every single second of it. I thought it was amazing, and I gave it 5 out of 5 stars and did not stop raving about it. This time, I still really enjoyed my time reading it, but I don't know. There was something that just made me pause and think, is this still my absolute favorite? Or is this a 4.5? And I actually ended up giving this a 4.5 out of 5 stars, which I know like a half star really does not make that much of a difference, but in my mind it does, Like a 5 star is a favorite. A 4.5 is like, this is really good, but it's not quite a favorite. So yeah, I think now the first book is actually my favorite. Before it was tied between the first and this book. But yeah, I still really enjoy this. I think it's really well written. I love the fact that there are clues in like the very first book about what is going to happen in this book. Before you read this, you have like, I don't think you'd see it coming because I think it's very different from the trajectory. I can't say that. The trajectory. trajectory. I think it is very different from the trajectory that the series was on before you get to this book, which I think some people then think that this is like completely out of left field and like hasn't been set up very well, but I don't know. I still think it's a masterpiece. I still really enjoyed it. Maybe it is a 5, I don't know. I'm really excited to discuss this book in the live show with Noelle and Mel very soon. The Toll, amazing. Show-stopping, fantastic. Anyway, but those were all of the books that I read in April. Pretty small stack, not gonna lie. Although Crescent City was 800 pages, so, you know, and this was 600 pages. So I think in terms of actual page count, it wasn't too bad, but it just like doesn't sound like a lot. But yeah, I'm hoping to read a lot more in May. I'm actually about to film my May TBR, which might actually go up before this video, so whatever. I'm hoping to read a lot in May and then hopefully have a summer full of reading like last summer. That would be dreamy. And I also need to find a freaking job, but that's fine. We're gonna pretend like I don't need to adult. But that's all that I have for this video. Please let me know what books you read in April down below, or if April was too long ago for you. Trust me, it feels like forever ago. Just let me know what books you've read recently and really enjoyed. Like, yeah, give me some recommendations to get me out of this kind of slump that I'm in. I would love to just love reading again, you know? It's sad. It's been such a long time. But yeah, that's all I have for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you liked it. If you did, please give a thumbs up. If you're new here, feel free to subscribe down below. And if you made it this far in the video, leave me a crescent moon emoji because of Crescent City. And I will see you very soon with another video. Bye.